Music, storytelling, and visual arts come together this Saturday at the Centennial Concert Hall to tell a very special tale. The Spirit Horse Returns, the latest offering in the Winnipeg Symphony Orchestra's Kids series, shares the stories of Ojibwe horses, traditional spirit animals, and experiences from Indigenous and Métis communities across Treaty 1 territory and beyond. An all-new orchestral score takes listeners of all ages across the wide expanse of the prairies to an intimate Métis kitchen party. Two of the key players in The Spirit Horse Returns join me on Classic 107 today. Jodi Contin is an Anishinaabe storyteller, and Ken McDonald is the horn player who brings some of these horses to life. Good morning to the both of you.
Morning.
Good morning.
So maybe I'll start with you, Jodi, to tell us a little bit more about where this project came from. What was the inspiration place for The Spirit Horse Returns?
Well, that's a very long story. I don't know how much time we got today, but I'll give you the short version. Back in 2018, I was asked to be a part of music scores in Parry Sound through the Festival of the Sound and play the hand drum. And I was told I'd be paired with another musician who plays the French horn. I did not know really what that was about. So I was like, okay. And James Campbell, the artistic executive director of the festival, said, just bring it together and make it work. And that was in 2018. And it got legs, and here we are.
That's right. We traveled to all sorts of schools all over the Parry Sound area. And we were trying to explore, how is it that we tell stories from our lives? And how do we share our stories in music? So we were workshopping with kids and telling them how they can use art and music and share stories that are important to them and for their audiences. So it really began as an exploration with the kids, and we were bringing these very unusual elements together: the Indigenous hand drum and the horn. And as we did that, we were talking about the Ojibwe horses that were living traditionally in Wasauksing First Nation. And as we talked about that, we realized this was a great connection point that we could discuss with kids. So at that point, Jodi wrote a song called Asemekwe for an Ojibwe horse that was on my farm here in Manitoba. And when she wrote that song, that just became a very electrifying sort of connection for the kids that we were doing the workshops for. And we realized this could be a show for all audiences that just really help everyone understand that everyone can play a role in truth and reconciliation. And there's ways to bring these nations together. As Jodi says, the Indian Act was meant to keep us apart, to keep us from talking. And so the work of truth and reconciliation is to have these dialogues and these conversations. Artists can start those conversations. That's our stock in trade.
Yes, absolutely.
A lot of learning, it sounds like, as you're going along about how to share stories not only together, but for classrooms and for kids as you're moving through these initial creation phases in the region around Parry Sound. What are you taking from that experience, from workshopping in these classrooms and sharing the story in these classrooms, to now taking it onto the big stage at the Centennial Concert Hall?
Well, it's been a very huge learning experience for everybody, I think. For me as well. Like I haven't been really a part of classical music up until about 2017 when I was a part of Sounding Thunder. So it was really a big learning curve for me as well. I don't read music. I play by ear. So Ken and we really had to get to know one another very personally, in the sense of, getting cues. The conductor would give him a cue. He gives me then the cue, because it's easier for me to look at Ken than turn my head and look at the conductor. So there was a lot of mechanical things that had to occur, because not necessarily everybody hadn't heard hand drumming either. So those were big. Those are always big. I don't know what word to use, but transitionings into various places and venues we've played in, but it's always been welcomed and received very well at the on the onset, and it's been a really great adventure so far. Yeah.
I would imagine, Ken, given the over 2 decades of experience you have, not just with the WSO as a performer, that this might be an opportunity to learn how to tell stories in a new way for you. What's it like to take those mechanics, the ones that Jodi was getting acquainted to maybe for the first time in that space, and then how do you then adapt as somebody who has known these mechanics so well over the years?
Yeah, well, this is definitely a way in which we're sharing privilege, and certainly like all the training that I did beginning at a very young age to be on stage in front of thousands of people. That's not necessarily a privilege that's shared with all sorts of people that come from diverse backgrounds like this. So it's like to say to Jodi, oh, it'll be fine. There'll only be a few thousand people out there. It's awesome. And by the same token, to have been invited to perform in Wasauksing First Nation, and for me to go to a First Nation and to meet the elders and say, here's what we're planning to do. This is the stories we want to tell. Learning how to respect the protocols of the Indigenous world is like those mechanics are also big, and I step in it every once in a while, and Jodi's there to like give me a nudge or show me the right way to do things, and the trust is developing there, so that if I do say something that's wrong, I at least know how to be respectfully bail myself out of it, or call in my friends and say, how do I deal with this? Because we want to make sure wherever we go that we're doing things in a good way, that we're always being invited to perform these pieces and these stories in a good way. We've been to Ottawa, we've been to Vancouver. All these different nations have different ways of inviting people in. So as much as it's about Jodi coming into the classical world, it's also me going into the Indigenous world and learning to share these stories respectfully.
And he's done a great job so far. I can definitely say that.
So far.
There's been some things, but no, it's been really a neat dynamic. And our families, our families, like Ken's husband and my husband, they are our biggest fans and our biggest supporters. And I'm so grateful to them. And I want to make a shout out to them because we're divas. They put up with a lot from us. And I absolutely just want to shout out to Trevor and Jamie because they have had to tolerate us in this manner since 2018.
Right. Oh, and by the way, while we're shutting out, we've got to talk about the whole creative team that put this this show together. Because in some ways, from my perspective, this started 10 years ago when Andrew Balfour and I were traveling through the Interlake, and we were doing workshops. And Andrew and I spoke so much about Truth and Reconciliation before the commission even started its work, and we were having conversations like we both were adopted, and he came from a 60s scoop background, and I, myself being adopted, we were able to really process a lot as we were like driving through the winter to all of these little schools and some of these small First Nations. So when we started to do this workshop type format, then Andrew was one of the first composers we brought on board. His music is threaded through this work. We brought in Kevin Lau to do some of the orchestral arrangements, and he's getting an incredible name for himself. So anybody who's interested in the New Music Festival, they'll want to come because you're going to hear a beautiful, beautiful orchestral score that Kevin, as a first-generation Canadian, he was here listening to these stories and saying, what does this have to do with me as a new Canadian? What part do I have to say? And then we brought it all together with the artwork of Rhonda Snow. Now, Rhonda is a visual artist who is a knowledge keeper of the horses. And I had been talking with her for a couple of years because of having horses on our property before I even knew she was a visual artist. One day I just saw one of her paintings on Facebook, and I said, Rhonda, I had no idea you did paintings. And she had this beautiful, it was so cute, this little picture of a chicken, and his little eyes were just so like, they looked like, they were so chicken-like. And I just said, I had no idea. And then she showed me pictures of the horse. She said, yeah, I've been painting stories and pictures of the horses for many years too. And I saw them and I said, this is it. This is like the missing element that we need to put in here, is all this artwork into the show. And then it all folded together so incredibly.
So many artists that you just named there all coming together to create this work. We mentioned Kevin and Andrew, both recent Juno nominees as well. So I'm wondering, what is the process when you're bringing in all of these creative voices to then shape The Spirit Horse Returns into the production that audiences will enjoy on Saturday?
You want to start?
Go ahead, Ken.
Well, I was going to say that you're going to see glimpses of that process on stage, because at the end, when we have this great community celebration where the horses, sort of as a proxy for the people, have gone through so much and have endured so much, and they are now we're bringing a promising vision of these horses and the people working together, coming together. And I've got to say, as some people are saying that DEI is divisive, DEI is not divisive. We are celebrating the diversity. We're celebrating the inclusion. And when the community comes together at the end, you're going to see Andrew Balfour leading a horse on the screen. You'll see Kevin wearing a cowboy hat walking down the street of Wasauksing First Nation. I thought,
And holding pictures going by.
and Rhonda holding the paintings. All of these creative team were there. We put the whole show together in Wasauksing First Nation, where we workshopped it with the horses there. We had cameras there, and it all gets folded into the show. So astute listeners or watchers there will see it all sort of unfolding in real time at the end, where we wrap it all up and together.
What an incredible journey that this all must be for the two of you. Ken, how do you mentioned that you've been around horses on your property. How do you bring horses to life through your horn?
Oh, well, there is a little connection for that. And for that, you'll have to come to the show to see it. I don't want to give away too much.
There's a special
But let's just say that the horn and the horse have always been very intimately connected in music. And the horn was always playing the hunting calls. So from the European tradition, the horn and the horse have always been connected.
And the drum too, in a way, right? Like the drum was also there when they were doing hunting. So it's kind of neat how we've come together from different pathways and brought this beautiful story together. And there's so many neat elements to it and undertones there that as an Indigenous person, you don't see very many of us on the stage the way you see me in the show. I don't think there's very many other people who do what I'm doing right now. And our beautiful conductor, Monica, I said to her today, I said, when you're doing this show, you're making history. This is something that hasn't happened before. And I don't think people understand that they are going to be a part of this story. And they are a part of the story every time they witness it, every time they're in it, and every time they hear the music. I wrote the songs for the show. Not just the Samakwe, but most recently Running Free. And it's featured in this week's these shows. And for me, that song was because as an Indigenous person, not being able to use my voice, not being able to sing in public for till I was older, there's different things that happened to our people that wouldn't necessarily allow me to be on stage in 1992. So here we are in 2025, and it's taken me a long time to get on stage and sing with a full orchestra. And I can tell you, the hair that goes up on my back and the beautiful feeling that happens when everybody's singing or everybody's playing, the energy just is so moving. I can go on for days about that feeling, but I'm just grateful I'm here. I'm grateful that I'm able to sing for my ancestors. And every time I'm on stage, my hand goes up and people are like, yeah, the reason my hand is up like that is for my ancestors. It's because I'm doing something that they were never able to do. And I'm grateful so much. Yeah.
I would imagine that the audience is going to be grateful not only to be able to engage in this performance, but I understand that the audience also gets something of a special gift in this performance in the form of a song that they maybe engage in this community celebration without giving too much away, like Ken was alluding to before. What can audiences expect from that sort of involvement?
Well, I can say that when I was a student studying ethnomusicology and anthropology at UBC, one thing that really stuck with me, and I was at the University of British Columbia in the Museum of Anthropology there, we would have people come in and they made it very, very clear to us, the Indigenous people that we worked with there, that there's some artwork that is public. And there's a great deal of artwork and music that is not public, and this is how we share our culture. And so we wanted to bring a little taste of that you are gifted this music, that this is something that very special, that is not part of the community in a public way, but is really a way that culture is shared in a very profound way. So we looked for a way, and Jodi wrote a wonderful little song that for anyone who's coming to the show that says that they want to take the next step in truth and reconciliation, that this song, if they take this into their heart, this is a way to move forward with that.
It's a way for the good medicine to heal everybody. So it's that shkike beshguji, or that means that medicine horse. And my other Anishinaabe name, other than Nagish Gokwe, is the woman who heals through song. So that song, when I sing it, is in with that intention from that healing that horse provides all of us with. That spirit within that horse that resides within that horse is medicine in itself. And that's the healing that it brings to us. And when I sing that, that's that letting them know that horse is there for them, to give them the medicine that they need. So that's what that give and receiving is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Maybe, Jodi, I'll throw one last question your way. You talk about this sensation of being with the orchestra and the hair standing up on the back of your neck and feeling your ancestors with you on that stage. What do you hope audiences take away from the Spirit Horse Returns being told in such an interesting collaborative way with an orchestra that maybe they wouldn't take away from the story if it was being shared in a different way?
I think that everybody takes away something different from the show. And my experiences with the young kids, they just love the music. With the feeling with the whole orchestra, when I was 7 years old, I dreamt I would be on stage singing. I would tell my dad, I want to sing. And he said, honey, that's going to be hard. And when he said hard, that word hard, I didn't want to have anything to do with, right? So I kind of backed away. And obviously I backed away a little too long, but here I am. Anyway, and so being able to sit on that stage and be with all the orchestra, wherever we're sitting, wherever we are, it brings that a camaraderie together that we've been missing in society. It brings us together as a unit, something we've never been before. Because I live on a reservation, and it still is run by the government. And I say that in the lines. Our First Nations were run by Indian Nations. Well, they still currently, they don't live there anymore, but it's still run by the federal government. So there's a lot of different undertones in it that just bring it the richness of what we're trying to show. It's just being open, being willing to listen, and being understanding in a good, kind, loving way. Those are children in the audience. I definitely know that. I worked with children all my life. I was in child welfare for almost 18 years in my background. I've seen a lot of things in my day, in my time. And we wanted to bring this so that they can have an understanding, so our next generation is more open and willing to learn and receive what we're offering, because we have a lot of things to offer and a lot of things to share. It's just about being open to receive them and not being pushed away kind of deal, So yeah, it's all good.
It's so exciting to hear about all the things that are being offered in the Spirit Horse Returns. Ken and Jodi, thank you so much for joining us on Classic 107 to tell us more about this amazing production.
Miigwech. Thank you.
Thank you.